Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Dave Noodles. We are on the Type 88 show. This is the show where we talk to people about how they turn their dreams into reality. And this was actually the first person I ever met who was making their dreams a reality. I didn't even know how to say the word dream. And this guy was already traveling the world, touring, put in probably 20,000 hours before I even said the word dream. So I want to welcome this man to the show. I want to welcome my dad to the Type 88 show. Hey, what's up, man?
Hi, everybody. Hi,
Good.
David.
Good to have you on the show.
My pleasure.
It's been a lifetime in the making.
Yes.
So I always like to take it back when we do these shows. So maybe we could talk about where you grew up and how was it growing up there?
Well, I grew up in Brooklyn. It was a great place to grow up. East Flatbush was the section, or they call it Flatlands. And I lived there till I was 17. Then I went away to college. But growing up was great. And Brooklyn was really just a wonderful place to grow up.
That's so cool. So before you got into music, what were some of like the activities or hobbies or things that you like to do or collect or take part of?
Well, I love sports. Even at a young age, I was involved with sports. So that was basically my main interest until I started playing music.
So when you got into music, at what age was that?
Well, I think I was in the third grade, maybe fourth grade. My parents decided to give me clarinet lessons. So the gentleman, his name was Hy Mandel, would come to my house once a week and give me a private lesson. At first, I really didn't like it or enjoy it, but I had to sit in the chair for an hour and stay there for an hour, whether I liked it or not. And my grandmother would sit with me and say, "Barry, don't worry, you'll get over this. You'll enjoy it." And eventually, I started to enjoy it and like it more and more. I would say the fourth grade I started playing.
How did they select or you select the clarinet? How was that
Well, we had a clarinet in the house. My father was a musician, and he had actually a very good clarinet, a Selmer clarinet that I used. And we had it in the house, so it was something we didn't have to go out and buy anything. And that's what I started on. It was simple, it was small, and it was convenient. Let's put it that way.
So third grade, you're learning, you're taking these lessons.
Yes.
You have someone coming to the home once a week. What was kind of your step out? Was there a band in the school? How did you get more involved outside of just the private lessons?
Well, when I was in the fifth grade, we moved down to a different section in Brooklyn. And I went to PS 203. And in the school, they started a band. So they asked if students played instruments. And of course, I raised my hand and said, "Yeah, I play the clarinet." So they put me in the band. And that's how I sort of got out of the house, meeting other people and relating to other friends that played musical instruments. And actually, to this day, I have two friends that I met in the sixth grade band, Eddie Fagan and Dr. Kenny Adelson, who played in the band in PS 203. And we all took private lessons in those days. It's different than it is today, where you actually can learn musical instruments in the school. So that was really the motivation for me to sort of get better.
Yeah.
because I was very competitive. And once I realized that my friends respected me on a musical level, that kind of motivated me even more.
So where did the competition start? Was it your parents? Was it sibling rivalry or different things? Like, because
No.
I think growing up, when I grew up, I didn't always feel too competitive. I kind of just felt like I was just trying to do whatever I could. So like for you to be competitive at a young age, where do you even think that came from?
Well, it came from sports. You wanted to be good, you wanted to win, you wanted to be the best you could possibly be. And I realized even in elementary school that I did have some type of talent. And the beautiful thing about it is my friends respected that. For instance, they would come and ask me to play baseball or punchball or whatever it was outside. And I would have to say, guys, I'm practicing now. You're going to have to wait a half an hour. And they did. And it was something that I think I was too young to truly understand. But it gave me a sense of, this is something that I really do well. And then, of course, I went out and played sports and forgot about the music. But, I was 11, 12 years old at the time.
Oh, that's great. Because at that age, even now, it's so easy to get distracted. It's so easy you're doing something and then something else pull you this way. You're looking something up. This comes to your mind. So for you to even have that discipline at that age to just say no, like, no, I can't go out right now. I'll see you soon. That's really awesome. Just be able to.
Yeah, it seemed that I knew I had to practice an hour a day. So that's what I did. And then I was free to do whatever else I wanted. So it was schoolwork, then practice, and then play sports. And that's how it was simple, very, very simple.
As people would say now, that's called locked in. Like you're locked into what you're doing. You're fully engulfed in it. There's no distractions. There's no other thing that you're doing. You're not multitasking. You are locked in. And if I think of anyone who's ever locked in, it's definitely you. So
thank you.
You're transitioning from you're practicing 5th grade, now you joined this band. So where does it go from there? Because so much has happened since.
Well, it was just a progression. I eventually went to high school, and my high school was Samuel J. Tilden High School. And I think I started in 1958 as a freshman. And again, it was this competitive spirit, I think, that I had, that I wanted to be the best clarinet player in the band. And just like you want to be the best baseball player or the best tennis player. So that was infectious, and we had a very, very good band program. The teacher that we had, Arthur Stracker, was a Juilliard graduate, and I still correspond with him to this day. And by my sophomore year, I was in the senior band, which I think my first year I was in the freshman band. And then it was fascinating because there were quite a few very good players in the band. And that was just a normal progression. But what really, really changed my whole life was in my junior year, I auditioned for the All-City Orchestra. And I made it. There were 4 openings in the clarinet section, and I think there were about 50 clarinet players that auditioned. And fortunately, I made it. I was the bass clarinet and principal second clarinet player. And I realized that there were great kids all over the city. I thought I was a big fish at Tilden High School, but you started expanding and realizing that there were wonderful musicians all over the city. And that opened up my eyes to something pretty amazing. There were guys actually that played better than me, and that was wonderful. So I'm in the band, the Old City Band. We meet on Saturday mornings, and I walk into the rehearsal, and I see these 4 students playing an instrument that I had really never saw before. And eventually, I realized that was the bassoon. And somehow it was kind of amazing to me. And the principal player in the Old City was Bernadette Zirkely. And she was also a very attractive young lady, but a very, very fine musician, and had a wonderful career in Manhattan playing with City Opera. And she had a wonderful career. Anyway, I was totally taken back by the instrument. So after a while, I befriended all the bassoon players. I can't even remember who the clarinet players were. And to this day, I'm in contact with 2 wonderful bassoonists from the Old City. Marty Vidrega, who was a teacher at Juilliard and Aspen and a wonderful contrabassoonist, and my good friend Ronald Grun, who also played in the Old City. And of course, Bunny, I never really became friendly with her, but I would send her a Christmas card every year thanking her for introducing me to the bassoon. And that basically changed my whole life.
So now you got into the bassoon. How was it the transition? Because you've kind of, you're at this high level, and you could be like, okay, well, I'm good. I'm going to just keep doing the instrument that I've proven that I'm good with. Now let me try to innovate and do a whole new thing.
Well,
how was that transition over to the new instrument?
Very interesting. So my senior year, I started getting a little bit more interested in the bassoon. My teacher let me borrow a bassoon from the high school, and I worked on it on my own at home. So I think it was like February of my senior year, I auditioned for the University of Miami orchestra. I had to go into the city. I went in by myself. My parents didn't even go with me. And I auditioned in a hotel room for a famous conductor, actually, Fabian Savitsky, who conducted the University of Miami orchestra, and on clarinet. I did very well. And he asked me point blank, do I play any other instruments? So foolishly or unfoolishly, I said, well, I'm playing the bassoon. I'm learning the bassoon. I'm enjoying it, but I'm really a clarinetist. So I left, and a week later I get a letter stating I won a full scholarship to the University of Miami on the condition that I play bassoon in the orchestra. Mm-hmm. So then I had to realize, well, if I want to do this, I better take some private lessons on the bassoon. And this was like in March, maybe April of my senior year. So I asked Marty Vidrega, who was a very knowledgeable fellow, I said, you know any bassoon teachers in Brooklyn? And he said, oh, yeah, I know a really good bassoon teacher. His name is Herman Gersten. So I called up Herman Gersten, and I took about 5 bassoon lessons from Herman, and we remained friends until he passed away this past year. So for many, many years, I would keep in touch with Herman. But he gave me 5 terrific bassoon lessons. And I went down to the University of Miami in Florida to play bassoon on a clarinet scholarship. And it was very, very challenging. Now, a lot of people said to me, well, why don't you go to Manhattan or Juilliard or one of the other schools on clarinet? And I felt at that point I wanted to do something on my own, something new, something exciting, something challenging. And I did. And I enjoyed Miami. I could have stayed in Miami, and I made some very wonderful friends there. Some wonderful teachers were there. Julian Ballo, the oboe teacher, was there, and he had studied with Marcel Tapito, so it was a tremendous link to the past. And but after 2 years, I auditioned for Juilliard and on bassoon, and I was accepted. But I had studied with Harold Goltzer that summer, and he said, Barry, they need a bassoon player at the University of Hartford, Hart School of Music. Why don't you go up there and audition for Hart College?
So where are you now? You're in Miami at this
I was
time?
in Miami, and it's the summertime.
So he calls you?
No, I was home at this point, and I was taking lessons with Harold Goltzer, just because the bassoon teacher in Miami was not that fabulous. But he was a nice man, and I realized that I needed something more. When you're a musician, you realize that some teachers have a lot to offer, and some teachers just don't know what to say. Yeah. So during the summer, I went up to Hartford on the train, and they accepted me at Hart College also on a scholarship, but this time playing the bassoon. So again, I didn't go to Juilliard. I decided it was because of the scholarship. We'd save some money, and it was a very nice thing, and I went up to Hartford and stayed there for 3 years. It was a great experience. And I played with the Hartford Symphony for 3 years, bassoon and contrabassoon, and it was a great experience.
So that's really cool, because you made these decisions at times where, once again, you could get distracted, you could get there's many temptations. I remember senior year, I don't think I was thinking too hard about getting into many places besides the club or something. And here you are at a time where a lot of people are maybe letting their guard down. Like, oh, all right, we're about to cruise through. You were applying and going to places that made you uncomfortable. And then you got put into an even more uncomfortable position. Like, yeah, we'll give you the scholarship, but it's based on you doing an entirely different instrument. And then you faced it head on. And
I did.
I don't know many people that would leave Miami and somehow I don't know many people who've moved to Miami that moved back. I know many people that have moved to Miami. But you were in Miami, and then you just continued to chase the goals and just seeking knowledge and seeking growth. And here you are now in Hartford.
Yes. So I was in Hartford for 3 years, and I was playing with the Hartford Symphony, contrabassoon, and whatever, third bassoon. Playing with the Hartford Symphony Woodwind Quintet because my teacher, Robert Schaefer, who was a wonderful man, didn't want to play. He was too busy. And I had a teaching job in Hartford because the Vietnam War was at its peak in 1968. And I don't know, there was another big decision I had to make. And at that point, I was thinking of auditioning for the West Point Band. which was also a very big decision. 1968, I was a number 3 draft lottery, so I would most likely have been drafted, and I didn't mind that, but my parents were totally against auditioning for West Point. And very interesting, also during the summer, I get a phone call from an assistant principal. His name was Marvin Rosenberg. And he was involved with the high school All City Orchestra. And he remembered my name because I had taken the teacher's exam. And they posted all the names on a list. And he saw my name was 4th from the top of the list. Jonathan Strasser was top of the list, and I was a couple of, as far as the grades go. And he called me up and said, I do have a position for you at my school. It's draft deferred. It was a 2S, I think they called it, where if you taught at a special school, they wouldn't draft you into the Army. So my parents were cool with that, and I really wanted to go to West Point Band. 2 of my friends were auditioning, and both of them got in. Professor Peter Kokenius and also Ronald Grun both got in. And it was a hotbed of great, great musicians. But I decided to take the teaching route. So that was another avenue of my life, going into teaching.
Yeah.
And leaving music sort of to the left on the side.
Yeah, here you go again, making a left turn on a one-way.
Yes.
And or when everything kind of looks to go one way, you kind of carved your own little path. So now here you are faced with a new challenge. It just seems to be something you enjoy now, from how I hear all these stories. So while you're taking music in college, what else did you have to do to then become a teacher? Because I feel like those are 2 different educational pathways. Did you have to do different classes?
I did the minimum amount of, not work, but I did the minimum amount of music teaching educational classes. Back in those days, if you took, I think, 16 credits of ed or music ed, you were able to take the music exam.
To be a teacher?
To be a teacher, a music teacher. So I took one class, another class, maybe a class during the summer.
Okay.
So I didn't really dig the music ed majors because I felt they weren't serious about music. And I was pretty serious about music. So anyway, that's why I was able to become a teacher. Again, I listened to my parents and they would say, take a music ed class. It won't hurt. So I did it, and I did have enough credits to be able to take the exam and get into teaching, so to speak. Yes.
So that's really cool, because as someone who is an artist, I would say full time, you get hooked on it, and to then kind of go to, I guess, more of, I don't want to say a corporate structure, but now you're in the city, you're working for the city. There's
Yes.
different responsibilities than working from 7 at night to midnight. You could sleep however long. Now you got to wake up early. Well, it's a whole new thing, but
Yes.
somehow you figured out a way to do both. So maybe you could kind of talk about getting into the teaching, but then not letting go of the thing that you had going for you.
Yes. Well, fortunately, I auditioned for what was then called the National Orchestral Society. And that was a group that met at the City Center building. I think it was twice a week. And it was a training orchestra. And they would train conductors. They would train, mature college musicians, and you played repertoire, and you met some wonderful, wonderful musicians. So I played in that orchestra while I was back in the city, and started my teaching career. So that gave me a sort of a life raft to continue playing. So I did that, and I was slowly getting involved with little musical activities in New York. Yeah.
You say little music activities, but as someone who grew up with you as my father, it was definitely way more than just little musical activities, because you've gone on to play with musical legends. You've been on I don't know if it's hundreds of Broadway shows or dozens. So it's definitely, maybe you're downplaying it just a little. Maybe you're getting to that point.
Well,
but so now you're teaching full time.
Yes.
But then you found yourself on these Broadway stages.
Not yet. Not yet. I wasn't playing on Broadway yet.
Okay.
That didn't happen till. So, I taught for like 3 years, 4 years. And the war was over basically, and I was 24, and I auditioned for Juilliard again, and I got in for a master's degree. I needed a master's to be a teacher anyway, so I figured let me fulfill my dream and go to Juilliard, get a master's degree. So I stopped teaching. I took 2 years leave of absence to get a master's, and I met some wonderful, wonderful people, friends at Juilliard. Ted Lane, a clarinetist, and Ethan Bausch, a wonderful bassoon player. And I was doing, I think somehow it's hard to reach back and think of how things got going, but Ethan called me out of the blue and said to me, Barry, I know you play other instruments. Would you mind subbing for me on the 20th Century on Broadway? So I said, well, I don't have a baritone sax. I don't have a bass clarinet, but if I could get those instruments, I will do it. So somehow, I can't remember exactly how I got the instruments, but I started subbing for him on Broadway. And I think also this is 1974, 75, I started subbing at Radio City. I can't remember the connection, because music is all connections and knowing people. And anyway, I started subbing for Ethan on the 20th Century, and that began my sort of Broadway career. And then, obviously, when I graduated, Juilliard, which was 2 years, I graduated. During the time of Juilliard, I was going into Staten Island and helping with the Staten Island Borough-wide program. A friend of mine was teaching there, and he knew I was available, and he said, would you like to come out to Staten Island and work with the Borough-wide on Saturday morning from 9 to 12? And I said, yeah, I could do that. There's no interference with other work. So that's where I met a whole new group of people. Tony Diaz, Susan Marin, Larry Lorenzano, and I did that Borough-wide program for, I think, 12 years. And I developed wonderful relationships with people on Staten Island. That's where my Staten Island saga began. But then when I graduated Juilliard, I went back into the teaching field, teaching full-time.
That's really cool. It's so many things, so many steps, and you're still only like 25 right now, I think, in the grand scheme of things.
25, 26, yes.
I would have thought you were like 40 something at this part of the story. So that's just so cool. I think you've pointed out some amazing things. People around you were great. You said even at a young age when you were going to those tryouts and those things, to contests or whatever they were to get to in the school or in the show or whatever it was.
Yes.
There was always the best around you. You're in this little neighborhood and you've kind of found your way to be kind of a top dog in that area. But then when you step out of there, you realize that the world is so much bigger than that.
Exactly.
But then you hit that realization pretty early.
Yes. When
you were trying out for the different high schools and the colleges and different stuff like that. And I think that's just so important for anyone with a dream, anyone just in life, just to be surrounded by greatness. People that you're like, oh man, I thought I had my stuff together. This one already got this. They figured this out. They're moving here.
Yes.
So that's been a blessing to me, just having some of my best friends just smarter than me, better at math than me, better at computers than me, rapping, whatever it was, but just being surrounded by greatness and people that were masters of their craft. It said, okay, well, time for me to go a little bit harder for what I'm doing. And I think it's just great that it's so easy to get put in a box and be like, all right, well, I'm comfortable here. I like doing this. Oh, I love Miami. It's great. Oh, I love this. It's great. I already got these gigs. But you just kind of kept pushing yourself. And that's something really to...
That was the beauty of playing on Broadway, because I met so many great players, whether a great flute player, doubler, or I subbed for quite a few wonderful bassoon doublers. That's what my main thing on Broadway was. Low reed specialist. Ron Ginelli, Mark Thrasher. There's so many wonderful guys. But I met other players like Dennis Anderson, a wonderful clarinet, oboe, flute player. I met Les Scott, a great clarinet player, flutist, who I eventually took flute lessons from. These guys motivated me to try to get to the next level. You're always trying to get to the next level, and I think through the years I've gotten a lot better. As the years progressed, I've gotten a lot better in some aspects of woodwind doubling. And of course, I subbed for Johnny Campo for over 30 years, 35 years, Frank Senegata. All these guys are, wonderful full-time musicians. These are all not music educators, but guys that made a living playing music. And that is very difficult to do.
But what's so cool is you've been able to do both. And I think seeing that as at a young age, I didn't even know how to take it. Because I've grown up with friends that didn't have dads. And it was interesting how you would wake up at the crack of dawn, you would work all day, cross the island, come back, make a couple of reads, take us out to dinner, Dakota Diner, Boston Market, whatever it was, and then you would just put on your black outfit and just go right to Broadway and literally be out till midnight, almost every night of the week, and then do it all over again. I'd like to be able to manage that. I don't know too many people that manage 2 full-time jobs, at least at a high level. Something suffered in between.
Well, it wasn't 2 full-time jobs. That's impossible, because Broadway was a part-time job. So maybe 1 week I would do every day. and there might have been 2 weeks where I didn't play at all. And it was usually maybe 1 to 3 times a week that I would go in. But it wasn't, I can't say it was a full-time job, but it was something that really kept me on top of my game, so to speak.
Yeah.
So to speak.
So what Broadway shows have you played in? Because I've seen the posters in the basement and everything, but what were some of your favorites?
Well, Passion was wonderful. Sweeney Todd was wonderful. Of course, Wicked I subbed in for like close to 14 years. I subbed for my friend Rick Santalanza
Rest in peace.
at Chicago for over 10 years. There was no bassoon in that show. It was a baritone sax, tenor sax, soprano, clarinet. But I subbed for Rick for over 10 years in Chicago. And I did quite a... Curtains I did for Mark Thrasher. And every Christmas time I subbed at Radio City. So one year I would do maybe 10 shows, and another year maybe 5, another year 25. It depended on, whatever. It depended on the availability and the regular guy, what he was doing with his schedule. And then that kind of stopped when they had the new contract, the Radio City contract. Yeah. So I did, after the new contract, I subbed for maybe 2-3 years, but I did like 2-3 shows a year with emergency stuff. But the new contract has 2 regular players on every woodwind chair.
Okay.
So for many, many reasons, which I don't have to go into in detail, but...
Yeah. So what other Broadway? Didn't you do Beauty and the Beast, too?
I subbed in Beauty and the Beast, not that much, but I did a few. Damn Yankees, I did that for, yes. A lot. I mean, I can't even think of...
did you do In the Heights?
Into the Heights. No, Into the Woods I did
Woods.
For Johnny Campo and set next to Les Scott. I didn't do Into the Heights, no. I don't think there's a bassoon in that show.
Okay.
Most of the shows I did were with the bassoon double. So a lot of the shows didn't have bassoon double. But I did, I think, over 30 shows. You sort of forget which ones you do after a while. But it was wonderful. It was wonderful. As a matter of fact, Jackie Henderson, who I subbed for in a few shows, she called me up a couple of weeks ago to ask me to sub for her in Funny Girl. So that's a possibility that I might do, but
yeah,
it's not easy. I might do it, but I'm not sure at this point.
So all while this is happening, you have 3 kids, which is a lot of kids these days. I know most of my friends now, they're like, I'm done. I'm pulling the plug on two after 2. I'm not. So you had 3 kids. You and Mom moved to Staten Island.
Yes.
30-something years ago. About like 87, right?
34 years ago, because Amanda's 35. So we waited till she was about a year old, and then we moved to Staten Island about 34 years ago, yes.
So what's kind of going through your mind, too? Your wife is having kids, right? This is like another major thing going on. Right, but you have all this other stuff going on. How was all that? Just seeing now there's more responsibilities,
yeah,
and you've never been a dad before. So how was kind of jumping into that world?
Well, the dad world was, I would have to say, thrusted upon Mom to do most of the work. She was a stay-at-home mom, so I could go gallivanting to Broadway and give private lessons and so on. Travel to Spain a couple of times and play. So most of the dad work was, take you out to dinner, try to be available, do this, do that, go to the movies. But Mom has to take credit for most of that. And she was a stay-at-home mom until I think Danny was 10. And then she started working as a para. So, I mean, you can't do everything really, really well. And there's only a certain amount of time in the day to negotiate when to be a dad and when to... So it's not a perfect world, but Mom really picked up the slack. She really did.
Yeah, shout out to her.
Yes.
It's one of my top listeners. She actually quotes parts of the episode, so shout out to her. And shout out to my siblings too. I'm proud of them. They're both growing up in an amazing way, and it's just so cool hearing these stories, hearing everything that you talk about, going to Spain, playing in all these Broadway shows, teaching it, and then it just, but somehow you found a way to kind of be crafty too, and you got into making reeds as well, right? And now these reeds are very in high demand. There's lots of people that reach out to you, and it's interesting. You're shipping reeds all the time. I always hear the little machine twisting.
It was something that I enjoyed doing, especially during the summer, because being a teacher, I was off during the summer. So I had this extra time. So I would literally make about 200 reeds, or what they would call blanks, during the summer. So if I needed reeds to sell or to use, I would have plenty available. So it became a hobby, but also a little something that I enjoy doing. And I send reeds to Stuyvesant High School, LaGuardia High School, and Cecilia Cruz High School in the Bronx. And of course, I give them a decent discount. A friend of mine said, well, he bought these reeds from a store and they cost $30. So reeds, for one reed, $30, that's a lot of money. And I don't charge the schools that much. And I enjoy doing it. I enjoy doing it, really. So, it's on my business card, bassoon reeds. And most people don't even know what that is. But from a hobby, it's grown into a little something that I enjoy doing.
That's great. It's great. And I've seen you make so many, and I've seen so many people give rave reviews. And somehow this guy does not have social media at all.
No.
And so it's all been word of mouth.
Yes.
Just people hearing about something and saying, hey, you're great. Come be part of the, this guy's lived his whole life without social media. We recently made him a TikTok, but even there, he's so busy, it's hard to even get content of this guy. But
right.
But that's just so cool, man. You just you still you've been able to stay crafty, building things with your hands, not homes and not cars.
No.
But keeping your hands busy, I think that just builds motor skills. It also, you're
Absolutely.
working with your mind, and it gives you a certain level of production when you could produce something. I know
Absolutely.
firsthand I make stuff all day, every day.
Right.
And just to see something made and to see it go to a new home and then someone enjoy it is just this something I've literally made my life. And it's a beautiful thing. So to hear that people are enjoying the reeds,
Yes.
playing with them and enjoying them is...
I feel really good about that. Yes, it's a wonderful thing to make things with your hands and see that it's being used in a nice way. Yes, I certainly enjoy that. Yes.
So it's so amazing because I've known my dad my whole life, and I know so many people that are older than me, or people that they've reached the age of retirement, and they've kind of just, a good amount of them have chased new things, whether they were like marathons and different things. And then I've seen some people that have stopped working that have completely lost purpose in their life. They went off the deep end. They pulled the plug early. They couldn't find themselves again, or they got lost finding themselves. And something I learned from you is just passion, just keeping your passion alive. And even though you probably don't necessarily have to work to pay a bill the way, maybe the home is paid, the responsibilities are taken care of, but you've always stayed passionate about your craft, your love, and I see it in you. I know people that meet you and they're like, no way your dad is this age. He looks so much younger. He looks like he was on the beach in Barbados for the last month. And I what do you think, what could you credit that to? Because you still, I know, a lot of people, they hit a retirement age, they kind of get lost. They don't know where to go. But you retired from music teaching, but you continued to work. So what's your take on all that?
That's very interesting. I retired actually, I was young when I retired from the Board of Ed. And just so I could spend more time with playing music. And then due to circumstance, Larry Lorenzano had asked me to sub for him at Staten Island Tech High School 1 day a week. So I got back into teaching again 1 day a week for Larry. I was the Monday guy, and I enjoyed that. Larry was a great guy and a wonderful friend. And then I got called by St. Joseph by the Sea, and I taught there on a part-time, 1 period a day and in the morning for 10 years. So my teaching career extended. But I think the reason I have this passion is because I want to get better. And I am getting better, especially on the flute, but I'm also getting better on the saxophone. During COVID, almost 2 years, I set some interesting goals. And as far as alto, Charlie Parker, I devoted a couple of hours every day, actually, to playing Charlie Parker with a passion. And the music people that are listening could understand where I would start Charlie Parker Volume 1 and Volume 2 at quarter equals 90. That means 90 quarter notes per minute. And where after a year and a half, I was able to get it up to half note equals 90, which is cut time 180 beats per minute. And it was a passion that I wanted to get better. And the same thing with the flute. I enjoy practicing that and playing new repertoire because there is a lot of wonderful music out there. One of my friends challenged me to play the Villoboche duet for flute and bassoon. The flute part. I played the bassoon part, but the flute part is very difficult, and I've been working on that, and it's getting there. So I enjoy the challenge. That's and recently I bought a new flute, which I'm very happy with, and recently I bought a new alto from Mr. Johnny Campo, his alto, which is wonderful. And so I'm still involved and still interested in trying to tweak my playing and trying to get better. So I don't know where it comes from. Maybe my parents being very, very critical of me at a young age. But I don't think so. I think it's something that you want to do for yourself.
Yeah.
I think so.
It's important. It's important to have things that matter to you, people that matter to you. And it's like a plant. There's no end unless, certain things, but your love for something, I feel that, and that's how I've been with so many things. I've probably been loyal to a fault where I've stuck around doing things because I just love either the person or the craft, regardless of the benefit, either financial. Some people have been like, "Oh, Dave, why do you even do this show?" It's like, I want to get better at talking to people. I want to get better at listening to people. Right. I want to get better at just communicating it. It feels good to just talk to people. I think it's so much more than a financial gain or feeling like you did good for the world. I think as if you're feeling good inside, I think that's just so important. If you find something that you love and then it challenges you and then it makes you want to get better and makes you want to learn, don't leave that thing behind.
Yes. Yeah, I totally agree. I still want to get better, even though I'm getting up there in age. There's always room for improvement.
Yeah.
I feel that way, and I'm not getting better at everything, but I am getting better at certain things. So that has to make me feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not getting better at playing tennis or ping pong because I broke my hip 6 months ago. But when I get back on the tennis court, I'll want to get better.
Yeah.
But that we shall see about that.
Yeah, it's been really cool to just watch you as your child and meet people either in the mall or at a music event that have had a connection to you or have had you as a teacher. And these people have been like, your dad changed my life. Your dad completely, I didn't know what I was doing. And a bunch of these guys are rappers now. They're not even musicians. I don't want to say a rapper's not a musician.
Yeah,
they're not playing musical instruments.
Right.
But they're making music. But these MCs have been like, it's because of your dad I pursued music. He made me love music during a time where I didn't know what I was even doing with myself. And you tell him I said happy birthday. I'll tell him I said this.
Yeah.
And another one that opened a music studio that was like, your dad was essential to me growing up, and just being 30-something in Staten Island thinking there's this big gap of like, oh, where's the impact? What's even going on? But hearing those stories, the things we do while we're alive, they travel, you know, and the lessons and the reads and the classes and the inspiration that we give people. We may be like, oh, well, this is just another day at the office, but like, you teach one kid something. You see now these young men are now sharing their love for music, and it just spreads and it spreads, and it's just so important to do what you love. And it's great that you've been able to do it in so many different ways.
Well, I tried to bring the passion to the classroom. So my skill as a musician, I brought to the junior high school classroom. And the kids couldn't verbalize it when they were, 12, 13, maybe 14 years old. But like you just said, it had an effect on many of them because they knew where it was coming from. So to speak, the real deal or the real McCoy, that's where it was coming from. And as you mentioned, it did affect quite a few, wonderful people. I've had some wonderful, wonderful students all the way back to Queens when I taught for 15 years in Queens before I came to Staten Island in 1987, 1988. And some wonderful, wonderful musicians and people that I taught at 141 and Bryant High School. And then when I came to Staten Island, junior high school, intermediate school 141, I had just amazing, amazing students. And it was certainly worthwhile, Yes, it was a great experience for me to bring the passion to the classroom. That was always very important.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you always told me to be a teacher. I know I didn't completely follow through, but I'm in many classrooms. It's not full time, but I get a sample of sharing my passion with students, and we have this show where we could talk about our passions with people that are in whatever profession they are in. So I've taken some notes. I didn't completely follow the footsteps, but I had to write my own dreams too. But there's nothing like being in a class, and it's just a humbling experience to be there for someone
Right.
at a young age.
So
yeah.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say, and connect with them. There's this connection where the making music becomes a reality, and it affects them later on in life. 98% of the students don't become musicians, but you somehow touch them. And that's the beauty of teaching, especially music.
Yeah.
I always went into the classroom knowing that kids love music. So how do you elevate that to participating in music and playing music? So that was the premise. And I enjoyed it. But when I left teaching, I wanted to leave when I was at the top of my game. Like a boxer, you want to leave when you're at the top of the game and not feel like you're punch drunk and not happy with, your situation.
Yeah, yeah. So here we are. You've taken me through quite a journey from third grade to hearing that you had to. It was a responsibility of yours to take music lessons. What a thing, right? Life could have been so different in that, just from that one choice. Or if something else was right? It just,
I didn't have a choice. I had to take lessons. I had to take lessons. No, you're
but
right.
imagine if they were like, time to go, we need you to go fishing training. I could be in like Mississippi right now.
That's right.
Or like Alabama or something. Like the odds of you would probably be like a pro fisher. That's crazy. So third grade, you have to take these lessons. Then all these situations where you've found a groove, and then they're like, well, we also, to get to here, could you do this? Could you do this trick? Could you do this move? And you're like, yeah, sure. And then this is probably a crazy question, but like how many hours do you think you've actually practiced in your life? Like if you had to, is there even a way to keep track of this?
No. There were times in my life where I did spend a lot of time playing music. In high school, I didn't really, quote, practice that much. I would at least an hour a day. But once I got to college, I did quite a bit more because I was training, literally.
Yeah.
Because I really had an idea of pursuing something. So it was like training for the Olympics. I wake up early, and then when there are certain lulls in your life where you don't you lose the focus for a little while, but then I always was able to get that focus back.
Yeah.
Now I do, when I'm in the groove, I do 3-4 hours a day of playing, and during COVID I did a lot more. But it's impossible to figure out. No. But it was all well spent.
Yeah.
Time well spent, really. And even if you are talented, because through my whole life I've met a lot of very, very talented people. But you do have to focus and work on skills to become better. Just like in sports, you could be very, very talented, but it's getting down and really, focusing on how to get better. The discipline of music is a discipline as well as an art form. The discipline of playing correctly. So maybe I like that aspect of music too, the athleticism of music, but also the discipline of music, the being exact and playing in time and in tune. That is another element of it. It's not the romanticism of just expressing yourself. So maybe that's why I like tennis, I think, because you could be a talented athlete, but you have to be able to do it correctly.
Yeah.
Or else you can't get better. So
Yeah.
Did I answer your question? I don't know if I did.
Yeah. The discipline and all that is just so important. And I love how you just want to keep evolving and just keep growing and keep learning. Those are some of my lifelong goals, is just to always learn, to never stop learning. No matter how old I get, I never want to be like, oh, well, I figured this out. Oh, I'm not going to listen to this one. Oh, you're young? What do you know? What do you know? Please. Like, I just want to be a sponge my whole life. Will I believe everything everyone says? Will I have to take everything? No, I could take or leave whatever I want. But I just always want to be learning and always want to be improving, and just the sheer act of practicing and sharpening your sword is just so important. it just pays such dividends for yourself. You show up, you're ready. You evolve, because once you get to that level, very few times you go down if you just keep practicing. It's like, all right, now what could we add to the repertoire? Could we add this now? And that's how it's been in my design world. It's like, now we know this. We got this down. Oh, we got 1,000 items here. What could we learn next to add a whole new layer of stuff? Because the minute you learn that new skill, that new instrument, that new software, you're more powerful,
Yes.
and you could bring more to the table. You could help a client. You could help your own brand, whatever it is. And it feels good. Pretty much my whole time running a creative brand, I hardly used Photoshop. And this is like the world standard of design. I just got it recently. And there have been times where like I felt my head hurting because I was actually learning something new. Because I've got into such routines. It's almost become automatic coming up with an idea and making it. It's almost just like changing the color soda. Like I know it's just like, all right, well, I'm going to make this grape. I'm going to make this orange. I'm going to make this Coke. I'm going to make this Sprite. And I know exactly what to do every time. But the minute I started learning new software, I felt it. I was like, oh man, this is hard. Oh man, what do I do? And I've been at a point recently, Dad, where I've been dealing with situations and I've been wanting them to go not horrible, but I've been wanting to take a loss because I've kind of getting into a situation where like, all right, well, I got this done. I figured this out. Like I'm kind of I'm not saying winning all the time, but I'm like, I want to take an L. I want to take a bump on the head. I want to not understand because I feel like my job is, I've kind of figured out a lot of stuff in it. And I'm like, now I want to get better. I want to figure this out. I don't even know what I'm doing here, but let me jump in here.
Right.
And hearing those stories about how you literally got approved to a college off the fact of now having to learn a new instrument, even though you tried out with another one.
Yes.
And then
that
you
is
took
true.
it and ran with it and completely shined with it. It's very inspiring to hear.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a beautiful thing, man. So what a journey it's been. Here you are, several decades after that third grade lesson, and you still haven't stopped, and you continue, and your passion seems like the same fire that it's been from when you really found out you love music, maybe a year after being kind of pushed into it.
Yep. Definitely pushed into it.
Yeah, and you pushed yourself, and shout out to your mom, my grandma.
Oh yeah.
She's very tough person. What was maybe a lesson that you've learned from her that you've taken with you?
A stitch in time saves 9. She had all these sayings that don't procrastinate, all kinds of wonderful sayings that she grew up with. And she had a very high standard of living, growing up a very, very poor young girl in a Brownsville section of Brooklyn with shoes that had holes in them, et cetera, et cetera. But she was a pusher in the sense that she pushed herself to succeed. A very bright woman, and she was critical but fair, and I think I learned a lot from her. So it worked out that I was able to deal with her in the right way.
What about your dad? What was a lesson you've learned from him?
Well, he was a very talented man. He was a refined man. He wrote poetry. He was a musician. He was a school teacher. So I kind of followed in his footsteps. He was a wonderful school. He loved teaching, elementary school teacher. After the war, he was a postman. But after 15 years as a postal worker, he became a teacher. Again, he strived to follow his dream to be a teacher. But more important, he was really a terrific musician, but a club date musician. So what he did very, very well. He was a drummer, singer, MC, and he was always, always busy because he was good. And he was a very refined type of guy. And again, he wrote poetry, which not too many guys do in their free time. And he wasn't an athlete, but he enjoyed sports. And we enjoyed watching the Friday night fights, cavalcade of sports on TV together. He was just a terrific guy. And we got along really very well. But once, after 17, I left the house. So I was very rarely home after that.
Yeah.
But growing up, it was wonderful growing up in my house. And that's why I suppose I am what I am today. Because there was a solid foundation, if I could use that term. And you build on top of that. So I think I was very lucky to have that growing up in Brooklyn. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah. Yeah, and so you were the youngest?
No, I was the oldest.
The oldest?
My brother was 10 years younger than me.
Oh, that's right.
And my sister was 4 years younger. So we had...
What are lessons you learned from them?
I don't know. My sister and we still get along really, really well. And I love her so much. And she lives out in Jersey and Morristown. No, not Morristown, Monroe. Mm-hmm. And my brother unfortunately passed away. But he was brilliant. He was a very, very fine musician. And but he decided to go into dentistry, and where he had a solid income and he had a solid future. But he was a fabulous oboe player, a great, really wonderful musician. But he didn't want that lifestyle.
Yeah.
So he made the right decision for himself. Because a lot of musicians I know, most of the musicians I know have had wonderful careers. Those are the Broadway guys that have made a living. And I don't know too many people in the Philharmonic, but those are people that have succeeded in the music field. Yeah. So he made the right decision by going into dentistry. He was really smart, and school was easy for him.
Yeah, yeah.
So he did the right thing. But I don't know what I learned from him as far as just being a younger brother and trying to have a nice life together.
I would say what I learned from my brother is to enjoy myself.
Yeah.
Enjoy myself.
Yes.
It's definitely a lesson I've learned. I've known it, but when I enjoy myself, I think of him.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to buy this one a drink. Oh, I'm going to buy this one a hoodie. I'm like, oh, I'm doing a Danny right now. And, and
Right.
So whenever I've learned that from him. It's just enjoy yourself in the moment,
Right.
have fun, and hook up your friends. Be there. Even though I grew up on that anyway, but you could hook him up even more, you know. And when I think of him, I think of that, and
Yeah.
when I think of my sister, I think of just keep running, you know, keep running towards that thing that's important. Keep running, keep going, and
Right.
but make time for the people that matter too.
Right.
Be available. Don't be only available for your hustle. Be available for your family. Be available for your people.
Right.
While you're running, it's okay to stop at the deli and pick up some ice cream for your mom. Hang with her and then go back to running.
Right.
So those are the lessons I've learned from them. And from mom, I would say I've learned so much, but it's just love. Literally just love, and there's just so much to that.
Yes.
You know, forgiveness, understanding, you know, figuring things out even when nothing makes sense. There's so much to love. It's more than just one verb.
Yes.
It's thousands. So yeah, I've learned that from her. And from you, it's passion. It's just keep that fire lit, and just, you know, as you said, there were a few times where you had to kind of relax a little bit. You took the summer off, you did this, but then you came back, and the fire just always stays lit, and for what you love.
Yes.
And I really appreciate everything you've done for my siblings and I growing up. It's been so cool to watch you follow your dreams. And, you know, I wish we maybe had more time together growing up, but I completely understand, and I'm not here to give guilt or anything about it. I actually tell all my people, like, I didn't see my dad all the time, but he always made time to have dinner with us, 'cause he was out providing. And I was like, I always want to work as hard as my dad and love people like my mom, and I know I'll be okay.
Oh, definitely.
So I thank you for being my guest and sharing your story.
My pleasure.
And thank you just for everything. I couldn't ask for a better dad in this world, so I really appreciate everything you've done for me, my
Thank you.
siblings. And I'm here on earth because of you, so I really appreciate you and Mom for that.
Thank you.
So there we go. So you heard him from the man himself. I've been wanting to ask him lots of stuff our whole lives, and we've always talked for 10-minute, 20-minute, 30-minute rides home here and there, but shout out to Makerpark Radio for just giving us this place a safe place to just talk to people, our family, our friends, people we work with, people we want to support. And this interview really meant a lot. So I thank you, Makerpark, for here we are, 5 years, Type 88 show. And shout out to Kristen, Tom, for this amazing place. It's just so awesome to do this interview in the studio with my dad tonight. So thanks again, Dad.
My pleasure. I enjoyed it.
So I'm going to just play a couple of jams before the night ends. And my dad actually has a recording. And maybe, when did you record this? It was during what time?
During COVID.
Oh, okay.
During COVID. Oh, that would be great.
So let's get to it.
One, two, 3. One. Let me do that again. One. One, two, Yeah, Freddie, that was for you after our conversation. I'm sending it to you. Ciao, ciao.